Welcome everybody to this last panel session on building an ecosystem of trust. My name is Teresa Scantamburlo and I work at University of Venice, and I also been working on the AI4EU project. And unfortunately, okay, the agenda looks a little bit different. So the chair of this panel couldn't, has some last minute inconvenience, so couldn't chair, and I will take her place. And okay, but also let me introduce the other speakers. So I don't know if they are all online. Okay, so yeah, our speakers of the panel, so Sonia Zillner, who is principal expert at Siemens Technology, where she is also leading a module on trustworthy AI. Kathleen Mueller, who is president and co-founder of Ally, and she has also contributed to the development of trustworthy AI and responsible AI at the European level, including, for example, the high-level expert group and many other initiatives. Emilia Gomez, who is principal investigator on human and machine intelligence, and also is the scientific coordinator of the AI Watch at the Joint Research Centers of the European Commission. And just to introduce this panel, I thought it was good to start and to briefly describe what we have done within the AI4EU project in this domain of trust and AI. So first of all, a remark on the topics that we have addressed. Our focus wasn't limited to the ethical issues of AI, but included also a broader spectrum of issues, including the legal, social, economic, and cultural issues of AI, what also we have called it ELSEC AI, an acronym which probably people within the project are familiar with. And I would just to mention two activities. Of course, this is a limited description. There have been also other activities, but just to give you an idea. And these are the activities in which I contributed with these people, Atia Cortez, but also other scholars that you probably know. With the Observatory on Society and AI, which has been mentioned even yesterday, we are trying to distribute knowledge and information on ELSEC and AI issues across Europe. We published more than 100 articles, and this includes also contents describing initiatives from other research centers and networks, because our aim was also to connect initiatives and projects working on ELSEC AI in Europe. And also reports. We provided some brief descriptions of reports, including, for example, European national strategies on AI. And these allowed us also to create connections and collaborations both within and outside the project. The other big effort was the working group, so the creation and the coordination of working groups on ELSEC AI. We adopted an approach based on multidisciplinary dialogue. So we involved people from different backgrounds and with different levels of expertise, diversity and inclusion. So our aim was to propose some activities, but also to trying to create these groups with a bottom-up approach, also trying to collect ideas and proposals from the people directly involved, and to learn from experience. Because there is no systematic methodology today for implementing and developing trustworthy AI or addressing ELSEC issues. So in the end, we created 3 working groups, and we gathered 20 participants. The majority of them came outside the project, so this was also an opportunity to create relations with people who weren't involved in the project. And we had regular meetings, which means twice, 3 times per month. And we have worked for a period of 9 months, so quite a long period. And with these groups of people, we created smaller teams which have worked on more specific activities, including case studies and the collections, for example, of materials to create a catalog in collaboration with the education team in the AI4EU project, collecting information for to map AI ethics courses in Europe. So this connects also with the previous panel sessions. And other 2 important activities that we run have been 2 consultations. One addressing experts. So we addressed 200 experts on EdSec AI, and another consultations involving citizens. And I will be talking about this in a while. So these are the two events we have organized, and which somehow mark the activities of the working groups, because the first one launched the working groups and was an online event. And the second one, the culture of trustworthy AI, has been the last event in September. It was a hybrid event in which working groups and other people, externals to the project, were able to present the result of the activities within working groups, but also had the opportunity to exchange ideas and talk on trustworthy AI. So, but let me just give you a few insights and informations about the citizen consultation, because in the project, in the AI4EU project, one of the aim was to involve the society and trying to, create an open conversations with citizens. And the simplest way to do it was to listen to them. So we created a questionnaire. The questionnaire was composed of 15 questions, and questions addressed 3 main topics: AI awareness, so to understand what people know about AI. AI attitude, so their attitudes towards AI in general and some specific sectors, and trust in AI, to understand also their ethical priorities. And as you see, we were able to interview quite large samples, 4,000 European citizens, who replied to the questionnaires in their own language. So we translated the questionnaires in their native speakers, and we involved 8 countries. So I would like just to give you some data. We are analyzing the data we collected, and we hope to publish the results soon. So first news is that, as compared to what we were saying before, is that it seems that our respondents have quite a positive view on AI. So when we asked, how would you describe your attitude towards artificial intelligence and its applications, it seems that they had a quite positive approach. So as you see, in some countries, for example, in Romania, nearly 80%, the level of approval is quite high. But if we look at the AI awareness and we ask it, for example, how often are you aware of interacting with a service or a product based on AI? The portions of the population, of the respondents, reporting that they are either always or often aware, reduced quite a lot. So there is a kind of a gap between the general attitude. So in principle, they seem quite, the level of approval is high, but the awareness is lower as compared to the attitude, the general attitude. Of course, the attitudes varies also depending on the sectors, because, for example, when we asked what's the level of, approval of AI applied, for example, in job recruitment, and AI applied in, for example, in smart meters for energy consumptions. Of course, there were different approaches. In the former case, people reported to be less comfortable as compared to the second case. But in general, the approval is quite significant. But this data somehow suggested us that we need probably to work more on these educations and communications on what is AI and where it is in place. And again, if we look at their awareness on the recent initiatives that Europe has developed to address ELSEC issues, you see that also, for example, the knowledge on very recent actions like the ethics guidelines and the proposal for a regulatory framework on AI, the knowledge is quite low. I mean, the level of awareness is quite low as compared to the general data protection regulation. Of course, we are talking about very recent initiatives, so this is, I mean, we could expect this kind of results. But these somehow connect, this information connect to these also data, which report somehow the priorities. So there was a question which referred to the some scenarios we investigated, and we asked what is the aspect that they would prioritize when applying AI in that scenarios. And as you see, we have tried to report somehow some requirements which correspond somehow to the trustworthy AI requirements. And as you see, privacy and data protection seems the one which is most valued. And with our, reflections on this somehow is that probably this influence also by the knowledge and the level of awareness of this type of requirements. So probably if we increase also communications and informations about also the impact and importance of other requirements, probably people would be more sensitive in this respect as well. So just to conclude this very brief and sketchy overview, we think that some takeaways include, first of all, that we should consider more careful the gap between the attitude, general attitude towards this technology and the level of awareness. So we need probably to increase communication, good communication, to help citizens understand where AI is used and also their impact. There is a lack of also on knowledge on other important requirements, which are probably less debated. And this includes, for example, accountability and the impact of AI on general society, democracy, and on the environment. This is not necessarily to let's say, give a bad view of what AI is, but just to communicate and to make them part of a conversations. And also this connects to our last two takeaways. So the need to include society into the development and our design practices. So we should probably develop more participatory design approaches, which are able to consult citizens and to listen also their opinion and collect their feedback to have better designs and assessment, especially when we talk about underrepresented communities. And last also, how to help in future engineers and future computer scientists address and face these ELSEC issues and these trustworthy AI requirements. Also, supporting them in their training and education. So we have talked about education, and probably I would reconnect to the previous panel on the importance also of ethical training and a multidisciplinary approach in programs training computer scientists. Of course, if you have feedback or questions on the work I just outlined here, you can send us an email, either to me or Atya. And I would just now pass and give the floor to our speakers. Thank you again for contributing to this discussion and to this panel. So I just gave these very sketchy introductions on what we have done within the AI4EU project, but I'm keen also to know what is your organization's, your project, how is your work contributing to build the European ecosystem of trust. So I would give you this brief round of answer.
How is our organization contributing to the trustworthy AI? Right. I'm working at Siemens. Siemens is mainly, so this is quite different what you just introduced, because we are a B2B company. So our main products are in the industrial domain. So this is for manufacturing. In the transport domain, so we are building trains and all the infrastructure. In the infrastructure domain, in the energy domain. So basically having the requirement of building industrial products, they need to be high quality, right? So basically the trust into our product or the challenge to build high quality product is nothing new to us. We see a strong opportunities in using AI. So there are many areas. So nearly at each product, at each process, you can think of using AI, and you need to do it again in a trusted manner. So basically, and this is something, I mean, do we contribute? We need to do this if we want to bring our product, AI-driven products to the market. We need to ensure the same level of quality. And here we are working, actually the way how we are contributing is first internally, because we try to connect forces, as you just mentioned, multidisciplinary. The knowledge is not with one person. It's not a technology issue. It's the technology itself is not trustworthy. The technology is embedded into an overall system, and then you need to assess the overall system. And the overall system gets assessed in accordance to a standard, a norm which is given from a particular domain. So then we need to go there and we need to understand what the requirements are there. So we are talking to them, to the domain experts, and we're trying to understand how we could convince, for example, people working experts in the machine directive, which is the legislation for our manufacturing products. How can we convince them that our AI has the quality standard they need to have in order to ensure that the product is safety? And that's the way how we are working and how we think that we are contributing. We have also contributed in the AI4EU in a pilot case. So having said this, so whenever we have insights how we can advance our own AI products, we bring it to the ecosystem.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I was trying to answer to the question about my organization. So I mean, I will be very brief, but I wanted to talk a little bit about, I think, a personal view on the evolution of this concept of trustworthy AI, also from the point of view of our institution. I mean, my name is Emilia Gomez. I work at the Joint Research Center, which is the scientific service, is a research center which is inside the European Commission. So we provide somehow scientific support, and somehow we work together also with our colleagues in Brussels, with policymakers on some of the AI policies. So I know that already Cecilia yesterday she explained about the current policy part. So I wanted to just give few cents about what I see the challenges of trustworthy AI going from the theory to the practice at the moment. So and a little bit the projects that we have had in this area. So just to start from this, we have two main projects where we have been working on the topic of trustworthy AI. On the one hand, we have AI Watch, which tries to somehow monitor how AI is uptaken, how AI is used in Europe and developed in Europe, to try to monitor a little bit the impact of all the investments that policymakers are doing and all the efforts that researchers are doing on this field. And we have been, the team that I lead, which is Human, we try to somehow research on which are the methodologies that we need to develop for trustworthy AI in different scenarios. So we have been trying to somehow try to find practical methodologies that might be applied in the different projects where we work. And I mean, as you know, of course, and also the speakers on the panel, trustworthy AI is a concept that was defined in 2019 by the high-level expert group. So it's these 7 key requirements that I guess we all address in different ways when we do research. Those requirements were accompanied by some assessment lists that were somehow broad, in the sense that there was a target goal that, for instance, I put the example of traceability, that a system might be traceable, that and then there were some questions that was somehow like a self-assessment. How can we ensure this traceability? And also in this question you also found, and also as Sonia mentioned before, that this has to apply to a particular context, and somehow traceability in the automated vehicle is not the same than maybe in an algorithm. So it should be adapted to somehow the context and the domain expertise that we have. So of course, from the starting of AI4EU project and also from this proposal of the concept of trustworthy AI, the regulation has tried to somehow put this into practical requirements for AI system, mostly in the high risk scenario. And there are different articles that refer to those requirements, mostly related to the 7 requirements of trustworthy AI, which include maybe more practical measures, still broad, but maybe a little bit more defined. And then instead of self-assessment, we need to consider that these requirements should be assessed not by the organization creating the system, but also by third parties, for instance, authorities or notified bodies. So this changes a little bit, I think, the view of trustworthy AI, because trustworthy AI can be seen from the developer, from the deployer, but now in the regulation, you also have to document and also show that your system is trustworthy to maybe third parties that have not been involved in the design part. And again, this idea of the regulation is very broad. It's linked to the context where the AI system will be used, so what we call the intended purpose of the system. So those requirements should also be looked from the perspective of the particular system that you are developing. So this brings a lot of challenges into the operationalization of those requirements into practical measures that developers and designers can integrate into their systems. And at the Joint Research Center, we did a study of, for instance, of standardization initiatives that address the different requirements for trustworthy AI. And for instance, we see that there's a lot of research and a lot of recommendations related, for instance, to accuracy, which is something that as a concept that has been studied for many years, and still there is a matter of discussion, but there's a lot of literature, and you see many standards related to accuracy, cybersecurity, or robustness. There's also a lot of work that has been done in the last decades on data, and also how to document data governance, which is also related to maybe previous regulations or previous initiatives. But we see other requirements that are a little bit less developed, such as, for instance, human oversight or record keeping, that might be maybe even transparency. transparency, there might be concepts that need a lot of research yet. So this is one of the things that we have been doing, is trying to map how trustworthy AI requirements mapped into practical standards or practical recommendations. And of course, I think we have 4 main challenges that we are trying to address, but I think the community as a whole is trying to address. The first one is somehow like walk the talk. So it's of course, those requirements have been defined as conditions to be achieved, and sometimes as we say in Spanish, it's easier to have a wish list than to try to manage to comply with this wish list. So it's maybe easier to say our system should be fair than trying to really make a system fair, evaluate fairness in a comprehensive way. So it's I think it's a real challenge is this providing technical solutions or guidance to comply with the conditions for trustworthy AI, and this is, I guess, the main challenge we address in our community and in our research community and in our as developers also of AI system. The second challenge I wanted to mention is the role of documentation. Is also the idea of trustworthy should be also demonstrated somehow, and in the scope of the regulation, you need to show that, to demonstrate to third parties. So we need also to advance a lot on the documentation and also on the how we document practices for the evaluation of systems in the different axes that we want to address. The third one, of course, trustworthy AI is a very broad concept, and there's some requirements that are very mature in terms of research, and some others that might be more experimental, and that we need, I think, to develop further. And the fourth one is, of course, the idea that AI is applied so many contexts that you may need to have specific setups. And Sonia mentioned about products or scenario where you can really deploy a system and look at the trustworthy AI concept in particular setups. So just to conclude, I think the path forward and what we have tried to contribute with our research team and our research spirit is to engage in multi-stakeholder evaluation of trustworthiness, including different disciplines or different stakeholders, also involving academia and industry. And now, well, I think the role of standardization is becoming very relevant for this, as we can actually operationalize some of the requirements. We have also trying to push research on less mature requirements for trustworthy AI, such as human oversight. In our case, we have focused on human oversight, transparency, and diversity and fairness. And there is still a lot to research also in these topics and to formalize. So this is another take-home message I wanted to convey today. And finally, the need to work on specific use case. For instance, in our project, we have a project where in law enforcement, we try to use an AI system in the decision-making process in the criminal recidivism. We have also some research on child AI interaction. We have started some research on automated vehicles that we will publish soon next year, early next year, and also on facial analysis. And we see that different use cases may require to target these requirements to specific context and specific scenario. So this is a little bit my 2 cents to the discussion. I hope I was not too long, but the idea of summarize a bit our perspective in this area. Thanks a lot.
Emilia, thank you. Then I would pass the floor to Kathleen. So it's your turn.
Thank you. Maybe it's good to explain a little bit about my organization. I've already heard some very interesting remarks from the speakers before us that we also work on and that we can help on. Maybe can I see the next slide, please? So LI has we aim at working together towards responsible AI or trustworthy AI, and we look at AI in the broadest, responsible AI in the broadest sense. So not only from the ethical perspective, but from the legal, the societal, the policy, the economic, the educational, the work, etc., from all perspectives. So it's both the LSEC that was just mentioned, but also the different impact domains that you can think of. For example, education, for example, workplace, etc. We also advocate a multidisciplinary approach and multidisciplinary stakeholder involvement. We think that, like others also said, everybody should be involved in the development and deployment and the use of AI. The developers, but also the domain experts and the people affected by it should be involved. Can I see the next slide, please? So briefly who we are, you might know, maybe some of you don't. My name is Kathleen Muller. I'm the co-founder. I founded LI together with Professor Virginia Dickman and Professor Amy van Wijnsbergen, whom you all know. The three of us founded LI in 2018. Next slide. Where did we come from? Maybe it's good to give a little bit of history. In 2017, I was the so-called AI rapporteur of the European Economic and Social Committee, and I wrote a report on the impact of AI on society, and that kicked off the debate on AI in Europe. That led, among many things, to the high-level expert group on AI, the three of us were all members there, and in that group we decided that it would be useful to have an organization that would continue the work after the mandate of the high-level expert group, but also would start working on bringing all these high-level principles into practice, have them land in places where they should land. So we were launched at World Summit AI in 2018. Next slide. As I said, our expertise is broad. I myself have a legal expertise and a societal expertise, and I know a lot about the policy developments around AI. Virginia has, of course, the technical, but also the ethical and societal expertise. Amy has the ethical expertise. So we can, the three of us, already bring to the table this multidisciplinary expertise on the topic of AI. Next slide. So what do? We do a lot of policy research and advice, which is really important at this moment. We have been, of course, confronted with the proposal for the AI Act of the European Commission recently, and we are involved in extensive talks with the European Parliament, but also with attachés at the European Council. We are also looking out for other policy developments at this moment. For example, yesterday the Commission presented a proposal on platform work that includes elements on what it calls algorithmic management, the use of AI to monitor workers, the use of AI to take decisions about workers. So we are also looking into that. And we're, of course, expecting AI and liability initiatives from the European Commission. Another policy area that we work on is with the Council of Europe, the KHI. We've been advising the KHI on their binding legal instrument on artificial intelligence. The second thing that we do is awareness raising and education. We organize events, but also master classes, dedicated master classes within society, within organizations, for example, with the Dutch tax authorities. We make those master classes multidisciplinary, try to involve all kinds of people. We work, it was already mentioned by speakers before, we work in projects that bring principles to practice. For example, we translated the ethics guidelines for trustworthy AI into an ethics charter for the Dutch insurance industry. So that is how we made the ethics guidelines adaptable to that particular sector. We have a project, Responsible AI in Corona, where we used the ethics guidelines to look at all kinds of AI and assess all kinds of AI that is now introduced to tackle the Corona crisis. We do research and several other projects, and of course a lot of outreach. Next slide, please. Our network is quite broad. We have contacts or memberships in all the European institutions that you can think of. I myself am a member of the One AI expert group of the OECD, Virginia of GPI and the World Economic Forum Council on AI. Virginia also works a lot with UNICEF. And on the other spectrum, if you will, I myself am also a member of the European Trade Union Confederation and Eurocadres. Those are workers' representatives organizations where this topic is also on the agenda, of course, when it comes to AI at the workplace. And Virginia is involved in IEEE, and I think that I have not yet put the entire network on this slide, but we are really vested in all these different societal domains. Next slide, please. So what can we do in this process, and what should be done? We can be the bridge between academia and policy. We can be the bridge between academia and society. We already are a consortium partner in a number of Horizon Europe calls, but we're also always open to join other calls where we can add expertise on the ethical, legal, and societal aspects, on the policy aspects, but also work on research, translation, dissemination, and outreach. And what you could do if you're interested in our organization, we work with a lot of experts in what I just mentioned, the master classes, etc. And if you would like to join that pool of experts that we already have, please reach out to us. We would be very happy to work together or collaborate otherwise in projects. You can reach us at welcome, which is the Dutch welcome at ally.nl. And I think that as for what is to come, the next year from a policy point of view will be very important. There will be a lot of policy negotiations on the AI Act, on the platform workers, and on perhaps new initiatives around liability and AI. And we will definitely continue in bringing these principles and these ideas and these awareness more into practice on the ground, if you will, within organizations, with workers, with representatives of workers, trade unions, etc. So that was my introduction for now. Thank you.
Hey, so thank you, Kathleen. We had very, intense presentations and good overviews on your contributions. I would have some questions for you, but before I would like to see, since we don't have much time before closing, I would like to see if there are some questions from the audience here in Bologna, or if there are, I don't know if there are any. Okay, online there are no questions, but if there are questions here, otherwise I would start with the questions on my side, and I would start from Sonia. So what are the main challenges for industry to align with the recent regulatory framework of AI?
Teresa, this is it's an important question. It's a difficult question. So first of all, I want to highlight that we acknowledge that we like the new AI Act coming out because it provides legal certainty. Right? I think it is the right way forward. but at the same time, it's a complex journey what we have to do together. I think the last 2-3 years, Emilia mentioned it, Kathleen mentioned it. I mean, there have been so much work accomplished already, and I have the feeling that we as a community have converged to a joint understanding. So with the high-level expert, the requirements, and I mean the work you have been done, Teresa, it's like the assessment, involvement of the industry, understanding that has to be a risk-based approach. So I think we really have done already a nice journey together. Now the AI Act is out, and I mean it is exactly going into the right direction, but the details are the difficult one, right? I mean, it's like, I think the generic direction is good, but then when we look at the details, probably a lot of Kathleen had mentioned it, a lot of work needs to be done in fine-tuning and to understand how the real impact is. In terms of what is the challenges concrete, I mean the challenges, and I can share how we are moving forward. I mean, for us it's a question who is impacted and what are the consequences. So that is the question we are asking ourselves. This is very concrete. So basically, we are currently running internally interviews where we try to identify the high-risk applications. Why the high-risk application? Because the ones which are forbidden, we do not see that we are affected so strongly. This is not our business. And the other levels, not so much things needs to be done, right? So basically the high risk of concern, because we need to understand how they translate in our business. So basically here, I mean, it starts that we really like interviewing the people who are working with AI, and then discuss jointly whether this is high risk, yes or no. And this is often not so easy. Because it's like, first you think about Appendix A, then you have like the list, yes, your critical infrastructure, okay, maybe then you are in. But then you go further, is it a safety component? And what is the definition of the safety component? And are you in an legislation which is mentioned in the appendix? So basically then it's what is, then we have like the machinery directive, we have the FDA, so we have different, and they are aligned. The general way how they are aligned is very nicely, but as I said before, the details is a difficult one. And here we need so then we identify that maybe the safety definition of machinery directive is not the same as in the AI Act. So then we need to go back, we need to understand. So it's a lot of understanding, and it's really like bringing a lot of perspective together. We have a lot of meetings where we bring the legislative people and the other people together to get an understanding. From the use cases we have identified, I have to say these is many of them which, so on the one side we have identifying some products which are on the market since a long time. And here we need to adjust the regulation because it seems to us from a gut feeling they are safe. They have been safe for 20 years, so there's a problem. And I think it's like, it's just we need to fine tune the definition, but here work needs to be done. And then there's other ones which are in the future direction. So these are future products we want to put onto the market. For example, if the mobility in the transport domain, if they want to use predictive maintenance, they use it a lot. But if it is for trains where people are traveling, then they cannot use it, right? Because it's like it's difficult to prove that it's safe. And for them, the new legislation is an opportunity because they have a clear way how to argue. So basically, to summarize, in terms of the challenges is working on the details, aligning we need to work on standards. I mean, Emilia mentioned this before. It's great work that you have done in terms of consolidating. I was reading this report very intensively. So this is a very important step. But for many things, how do you prove that an AI algorithm is robust, right? I mean, we need to work on this. We have not yet, we have understood the field, but what is the concrete requirement and how can you convince all these vertical areas? So here, I think joining forces is quite relevant. And last but not least, what are the challenges? And I think we should not overlook this. I'm now repeating what Emilia has said, but I think it's of importance. The upcoming research challenges which we need to address. We have inside Siemens, we have, I mean, as I said before, trust high quality products is nothing new. We have worked on safe reinforcement learning already since years, robust AI since years. Also explanations are central due to our domain. What we are currently doing, we are consolidating, we're bringing all this technology together because we need to, you know, not one size fits all, right? In accordance to the application, different technologies are needed, and we need to be very flexible because we need to have a portfolio of technologies which we then can adjust to the different AI applications, also that we are able to scale, because we do not want that the legislation destroys our business case because we are too slow. So basically here, to understand how all this stuff is working together is very central. And then, so this is technology. And last challenge I would like to mention is skills. And I see the skills in the auditing process. If you look at the existing conformity assessment approaches, I mean, there are many out, right? And the questions are not yet standardized. I mean, I hope standards will do their job. But how do you answer and how do you assess that the answer in this context is convincing? So this herefore you really need deep data science AI expertise to be convinced that this was a good answer. So this is not a standardized answer. And here we need to find ways how to address this, because I'm a little bit worried if in 2024 maybe the legislation is out. As Emilia was said, is it like third party, or is it like is it self-assessment? But do we have the people who can do the assessment, right? I mean, and even so here we need to work jointly. So this would be my third point in terms of what we need to do.
Thank you, Sonia, for sharing your point of view. Of course, sharing common standards is a key for the development of an assessment, a trustworthy and conformity assessment. We received a quite long comment. So it says great presentations, but since it seems a comment regarding Sonia, referring also and commenting that is not just about technology, but also the system in which the technology is applied. I think it's better if you can read it directly from the chat and answer directly. I'm sorry for that, because we are also close to the end of the session and we need to be on time. I would ask the other two speakers to be quick. I mean, I would have other two questions if there are no other questions from the audience. I would ask Emilia, and I'm sorry, but I need to ask you to be short in your answer. What is the role, I mean, of women to achieve trustworthiness? So we have been talking about standards, but also diversity in developers and disciplines is a key. So what is your opinion on women?
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for the question. I was going to turn it around. What is the role of men in this area? No, because we are all women in this panel, so it's a little bit the other way around. In Human Project, we contribute to an initiative which is called Diversity in AI, DB in AI, and we have trying to build indicators of the diversity of the AI field. So, for instance, the presence of women and the presence of also academia versus industry, and the presence of different different countries or different cultures. And we see, for instance, that in maybe in technical conference, there's still a lack of diversity in the area, and we see, for instance, some improvements in diversity, for instance, in keynote speakers or in organizers, but not real authors of papers. So those people that are developing the algorithms, women are still underrepresented. But we see also in these indicators that if you go to areas, for instance, conferences such as ACM FAT, that are more towards ethics and also more interdisciplinary, then you see that they are much more diverse. So I would say that the field of AI ethics is now dominated, or at least there's a lot of relevant women in the field. And also Kathleen also presented her organization is also women led, and we see also panels. So I would say, what's the role of men in this scenario? It seems that sometimes it's only women that are just claiming this trustworthy concept. So I think we really need this diversity also in this area. Know that we have also very technical people and people that are just traditionally male stereotypes that really are interested in the field, because as Sonia mentioned, there is a lot of challenges on technical component, on standardization that we need to address with this diversity, because if the community doesn't back up, it will be difficult, I think, to achieve. So I would just turn around the question: what is the role of men in this field also, that we need more diversity in that
point of view. Thank you for these remarks. So we should be careful in creating new gender stereotypes also in the fields of AI ethics. Okay, so Kathleen, a last question for you before closing. Very quick remark. So do you have a recommendation to support organizations and professionals to implement the AI Act or the ethics requirements? So would you give a final recommendation?
Yeah, I could say a couple of things. Thank you. First of all, please remember that the AI Act and everything that is still coming out are still proposals. So they are being worked on, and they might change in the coming 1 or 2 years. So be aware of that. The second thing I would like to say, try to understand the alignment and the relevance of existing regulation. AI does not operate in a lawless world. There is a lot of existing legislation that applies just as it applies to any other technology or any other type of use. So it's not just the AI Act that you have to deal with. Make sure that you try to understand also the broader impact of AI, not just on privacy, not just on data, but really the broader impact. And don't forget, I would say, don't forget to ask what I call question zero. We can ask ourselves, okay, if we want, we can build this very invasive technology, but do we want that? Do we want to use that? Is that something that we really want in our society? And if so, how do we set it in the right boundaries and bring it in a responsible manner? So that is really quick, and it's 4 o'clock, so I made it.
This idea, which I think can summarize the panel. So to speak and to support the discussion on the social impact of AI, not to create harm, but to incentivize the usage and increase trust in this technology and to have a better integration in our society. So thank you to our speaker. You were super good in concluding in time. And thank you again for your contributions, and also for the audience and the online attendees.
Can I add one more thing?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, please.
Yes, as I think that your audience is a lot of researchers, and what I now see in Europe in the policy debates, there's no researchers involved. It's only the lawyers and the policymakers. Please involve yourself in the debate. Via us, you can do that, because they're talking about technical stuff also, and to be honest, many policymakers have no idea what they're talking about still. So please.
So now it's time to close the event. So after 2 days of works, I hope that the message that has passed to you is the fact that we have, a platform that is your platform that you can enrich, you can play with, you can contribute to, and therefore I really, invite you all to use it, to test it, and to also collaborate with. The second thing that I want to say is that around this platform there is a community. There is a community that is strong, that is very well glued, and basically, this community has really been glued by these projects. So never, I think that never, in the past years, we have never seen such a collaboration between European projects. So we are always collaborating among ICT 48, ICT 49 projects, and this is something which is really new. So it has never happened. It never happened in the past. Every project was doing its own business. It was closing and everything was forgotten. So now I think that the Commission has really reached and done an important thing, which is make us collaborate, make us work together, become an ecosystem, a community, and also more importantly, do not lose what we are doing in European project after the end of the project. So in this perspective, I hope that was a message that has passed and that has reached you. And so for closing, I want to say that making an hybrid event is always a huge challenge, a really huge challenge. So let me apologize in case that there have been some problems at some point, like with the connection or with some speakers, and I really apologize for that. But I think that overall the project, the 2 days event has been a success. We have been able to glue together people online and people here. So I really have to thank a lot of people. So first of all, let me thank the people from Musicanti. So to the control room, we have Massimo Farinella, Enrico Strada, and Alessandro Dotti. Then we have Maurizio Cinti is the video making, Andrea Ferroni is the sound engineer, and the leader of this group is Simona Lolli, that I really want to thank. She's a superwoman, super efficient, and really it was fantastic working with you, Simona. Thank you so much. From the University of Bologna, and also from other institutions that have collaborated with us. I would really like to thank Suzanne Korer, Gabriel Gonzalez, Melissa Brunner, Sean Gavignan, and from the University of Bologna, Angelica Mazzina, Martina Baccaro, and Diretta Rizzolo. And the real soul and the real factotum of this event, Roberta Callegari, a huge thanks for all your work on your effort. Thank you so much. And last but not least, let me thank all the speakers, all the moderators, all the participants that have made this hybrid event, a success. I really thank you so much. I wish you, Merry Christmas, because in a couple of weeks we will all we'll have Christmas holidays, and I hope that in the next year we can all together see and meet together in presence somewhere in an event that is with no limitations for COVID. So thank you again so much to everybody, and Well, welcome. Well, have a nice trip back for you that you are you that you have to travel, and thank you for those online. Bye. Bye. Bye.